Yeah, you only needed to hear a second to know where this is going. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. For this video, we're looking at 08th MS Team, the first episode, War for Two. MS 08th Team seems to be a fan favorite. You know, getting into Gundam when I initially did, you'd always hear about 08th MS Team. Even I watched it and I enjoyed it, although I kind of considered it more closer to the bottom of my favorites, although I guess that kind of changes now that we get more into it. But the reason has to do with the character designs, the noses. But before we get started, if you haven't, please subscribe. There's a link in the description for a giveaway video where you can comment something that you'd like to get. So if you subscribe and commented, there's going to be 2 possible winners once I hit that old 1,000 mark of subscribers. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so bear with me for a moment. Here's our main character, Shiro Amada. We learn about him from this first episode, War for Two. It doesn't have the typical conventional UC Gundam character design that I guess I'm familiar with from me being more of a recent fan of Mobile Suit Gundam, starting with UC and going through all the series. I was always put off by the character designs here. There was this contrast between the verisimilitude, the detail of the weaponry, the mobile suits, the atmosphere of the war. What's being reflected here in 08th MS Team is kind of the Vietnam era war, a little bit of Desert Storm thrown in. Sometimes it could be gritty, it could be depressing, it could be sad. And most of the characters are fun, but the 2 main characters have some odd designs to them that are actually quite common in other anime, especially anime of that time and another Gundam anime. But it's just hard for me to take it seriously at what I'm looking at. Here is Amuro Ray, everyone's favorite, and from Char's Counterattack. Now, I think this is a re-rendering probably used for a video game, but look at that nose. It's got the ridge. It's even got kind of the area where then the nose would kind of change its shape. And then it's got the shading. It's a more 3D developed nose. Now, again, this is a cartoon character, but there's more believability here. And from the recent Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway, here's Hathaway Noah. There's his nose. Again, we see the ridge line. We see the detail to where the nose is changing. Even though this is a cartoon, I feel like the detail here is lending to a real character, real human character. And to look at a female character from the same series from Hathaway, again, we have the ridge line. We can see where the nose changes shape, and then we also have the nostrils. So we're seeing a lot of depth with the nose that even with blurred vision, you can tell you're looking at a character's nose. And here's Aina from 08th MS Team. It's really just look, it does have that change to it, like the hook, but it doesn't have any other depth to it. When I'm looking at this character's face, I am seeing maybe a cartoon character, like I would say something more akin to I don't know, like SpongeBob or, a Nickelodeon cartoon where the characters had a caricature style to them that wasn't supposed to be mimicking real life, but was supposed to heighten specific attributes. And I think the eyes are another issue for me here. If we can look at how just the eyes look, they have that slanted nature. They're rather large, even though we do see that. If we look at Gigi's eyes from Hathaway, we can kind of see where that has the circular shape within the eye socket. Now, from another Gundam series that I'm not as familiar with, except for the designs, is Gundam Seed. And when we look at the characters here, it's that same look that is from the main characters of 08th MS Team, and that is having the less detailed nose, the really big and exaggerated eyes. Again, this makes them look less human-like, and it looks like I'm looking at some cartoony caricatures. And I just wanted to add another one that's older than Hathaway, if maybe that was the argument you're trying to make. Well, Hathaway's newer, it's more detailed. Here's Kuwaraki from Stardust Memory, and we could see the detail on his nose. Not only does he have the nostril detail, but also the underside of the nose where the nostril eyes is also detailed. Again, it almost looks like I am looking at a human, and we can see with the pupils here, they're not at the top and the bottom. There's actually some separation there, so you can kind of get a better visual representation of the character. And that reminds me of video games. A lot of times it's hard to take video game characters seriously when their eyes just kind of look dead and not realistic. When you have the lack of the whites at a top or a bottom, depending on the situation, it's really hard to really understand what the characters are doing. Now, I will kind of say I'm nitpicking. I kind of hate that I'm jumping into this, but just the reason I'm doing that is because this is something that put me off as a kind of a newer fan of anime and getting into UC Gundam. When I saw these character designs, I had trouble taking it seriously, being pulled in, because it seemed like I was seeing a cartoon character that I couldn't really associate myself with. Now, with that out of the way, let's just enjoy ourselves here. And as we all know, this series opens with a banger, and when I first heard it, I didn't like it because it is very Japanese anime-y style music. It's not music I listen to. I'm more of a metal guy, a synthwave guy. I like movie or soundtracks, movie or TV soundtracks, but this music, it was just like a Japanese pop song, not my thing. But it didn't take long for it to seep into the crevices of my brain and to really become part of me, to where whenever I see 08th MS Team, just the words displayed anywhere, the song pops into my head. There is something about the song that it's just a classic good song. Even if on first listen you're like, what is this? And for someone that is new to Gundam, I mean, you can watch this opening and get a really amazing sense of the war, of the battling, of the machinery, the realistic nature of how things are detailed. And again, that contrast is the main character designs, but I don't want to keep touching on that. Very cool to see this interesting style. It's not even a mobile suit, but we can see where kind of the gun tank engineering is applied to this sort of crane-like mobile crane that the Federation is using when they're trying to get a mobile suit out. Kind of interesting to see this because 08th MS Team takes place during UC 0079, the 1-year war. This looks like something that would have been there for maybe 50 years or so. And it's a Gundam head. Maybe it just looks cool, but I don't know if there's any other explanation for this unless it was just a badly damaged head. It was maybe rolling through the forest or the jungle, and I guess some debris fell on it to just give the appearance that it's older than it is. The beginning does a really good job, again, of setting the tone for how realistic it seems when we have these ground-based mobile suits. We have operations taking place. We have people doing their jobs, and we're kind of introduced somewhat limited to some of the characters that show up for the rest of the series. Yeah, so drinking in a cartoon, this isn't for kids, right? Don't they call that out a lot of times in modern cartoons? You can't really show a character drinking alcohol. I mean, they didn't say alcohol, but someone even calls them out for drinking on the job. And during this opening, we meet Karen, Elidor, Jadan, so some of the characters that we're going to be seeing more often. Okay, you cannot complain about Double Zeta Gundam being too goofy when this show opens with this. All right, now we're going into space. We're going to be meeting some new characters, but it's really cool to see this transport ship going to Earth. And for a lot of these characters, we're meeting some of the other of the 08 MS team. This is their first time to Earth, and they're kind of excited about it. Now on this transport ship, we meet Mikkel, Sanders, and Shiro. And again, they're heading to Earth. They're really excited about it, haven't been there before. But Shiro gets a glimpse of something going on, and they're surprised to see that there could be a battle occurring. And as we get to know Mikkel a little more, he writes in a journal for a reason. Cool to see Zaku and GM already fighting on this first episode in space. That contrasts from how the series is primarily focused on the ground, but it's still cool to see some space battles. So Shiro just had to go out there and help out, and he jumps into a ball to do this. Now, if we watched MS Igloo, that I did a review on before, we can see that the ball can really stand its own against Zaku's, and this is a good example of that. And out there in a busted GM is Sanders. And look at that nose. And just to give a detail on Aina's mobile suit, it's a MS-06RD4 Zaku High Mobility Test Type. So kind of interesting. Again, this is during the 1-year war. So we have these Zakus that are high mobility, and it's a test type. And the colors are pretty cool, very unique. And this is what she's actually out in space in, where Shiro meets her with his ball. That didn't sound right. And so the ball has all these little tricks up its sleeve. It gets itself wrapped up, kind of giving room for Sanders to take off in his damaged GM. Before they blow up, the ball opens the cockpit, so does the Zaku, and Shiro sees the pilot, and he's like, oh, a woman. All right, and then what reminds me of the end of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, we have a pilot in a red suit, a pilot in a white suit, and they are going into the kind of destroyed area to kind of do an on-foot battle now. This is either a Magellan or Salamis class ship. I couldn't figure it out exactly. I was trying to do some research on that, but it's the green color, which we'll sometimes see like with the Salamis. But yeah, they are heading in there. So Shiro is homing in onto her. He has his gun out ready to shoot. Aina, is going to shoot back, but doesn't have any bullets left. So she was willing to take him out. He doesn't shoot her and in fact wants to save her. And he even brings up, hey, take off your helmet so we're not wasting oxygen. Let's figure out a plan to get out. And their plan really is to set off some fireworks and explosion on the ship in order for that to catch attention from either Zeon or Federation soldiers to come and save them. And earlier she brought up that she didn't want to be a prisoner. She didn't want to have to go with him, but also he doesn't want to be a prisoner by going with Zeon. He'd rather just stand out there and just wait for the Federation to hopefully show up. And so even though there's 2 Zaku standing out there that just saved Aina, Shiro is now seeing the oncoming GM that's damaged, and the Zakus were going to take it out, but Aina said, no, don't. It's not worth it. It's damaged. We'll just take it out anyway. And I thought that was odd. I thought, hey, well, they would just take it out anyway, right? Well, as they're heading back, the Zakus are heading back, she's saying in her head, I'm glad that went that way. I think she was even scared that they were just going to take it out. She's a Zeon soldier, and so she's starting to get feelings for this Federation guy. And this Federation guy was pretty cool. He could have shot her when he decided not to, and even did his best to save her. So we're kind of seeing the building blocks there of these characters really kind of feeling for each other. Really cool. We get to see Giran and Garma. So just this is probably shortly after Garma's death. Giran is doing a kind of his whole propaganda thing, just kind of getting more of that world building going on within Gundam. And Shiro, he doesn't really care about what's on TV. He's just looking down at the watch that was given to him by Aina. He's still thinking about her. So we could see the beginning of the series 08 MS Team. Its strong suit here is it trying to establish the relationships of the characters of Shiro and Aina. And then the typical cool ending. Music's actually pretty catchy, but it's kind of cool to see them just chilling on the ground. Just some other elements of world building. And I was saying, in general, this isn't really an exciting episode, but what it does well is establish the characters, mainly between Shiro and Aina, but we get to see a lot of Sanders, Mikkel, and even some of the other on the ground. But as we go further in, we'll get to meet more characters. So anyway, that was a brief overview of the first episode of the 08th MS Team. And again, I'll be going through all the episodes, but really wanted to not only start with the first episode and, the character development there, but really talk about the design, because I do think that's kind of an interesting aspect when it comes to Mobile Suit Gundam. I typically enjoy the design of the characters, considering that it is cartoon animation, but I think it was not the norm with the styles of the main characters, but I think it just met the needs of the time. We're really going back, you can just see how timeless the designs of the original 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam was, even compared to this. I'm actually curious what you guys think. What do you think of the designs of the 2 main characters versus something like the original Mobile Suit Gundam and their designs? I think this was going for that stylized look, and sometimes a stylized look is more about the times and not necessarily something that is beyond time. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but I'd like to see what you think. Yeah, leave a comment below and like the video if you liked it. And Sig Zeon. See you guys.